Yeah, so the thing I was excited
What?
about, I will say this and then I can shut up and stop talking about it. The thing I'm excited about is my grandfather, not as a participant necessarily, but somebody who helped implement it in South Dakota, was really heavily involved in the Civilian Conservation Corps when it was brought in by FDR back in the Dirty 30s and stuff. And
Hmm.
they just announced that they're restarting the CCC as the middle C stands for something else now, but essentially it's the Civilian Conservation Corps restarted for uh, infrastructure and so watershed rebuilding, conservation work, as well as green job stuff and that kind of thing, and restarting that within like the next, hopefully within the next 3 months or so, with literally thousands of jobs and stuff like that nationwide to do some of the same kind of work. Having done a lot of hiking on national trails that were built by just ridiculous trails that were built by the folks that were part of the Conservation Corps. It's kind of neat to see it, and knowing that my granddad was involved in it, so it's really really cool to see that they're starting that back up again. So neat idea.
Very cool.
Yeah, civilian. I can't remember what they're calling it now. It's went right out of my head, but yeah, they're starting up the CCC again. So pretty neat. Pretty neat.
So Margie is reloading driver stuff at the moment. I have the game on my external speakers so she can hear, but she can't speak at the moment.
Gotcha. In a weird way, it almost ties in because I have this thought. I like this idea of like volunteer civilian corps that have been brought in to do some sort of big service for you know a larger government, like in this case, rebuilding the gate network. Um, that's kind of neat. The CCC of space.
Very
The
fitting.
Celestial Connection Core.
Very, very ooh.
Ooh.
This. I'm. What were you saying, Mike? Before Dave came up with the really good.
Oh no, I was just saying that that is a fitting aside.
I think so. I like the connection. If nothing else, it's pretty neat. Um, but the Celestial Connection Core. Uh, I don't know that I should be that tickled by that, but I absolutely am.
No, be tickled.
That's pretty cool.
It's 2021. Take all the joy you can.
Yeah, that's 100% fair. All right, I need to find.
All right. I feel like that segues pretty good into talking about the game. So,
Ooh,
Joyce, are you doing your recording thing?
I am recording, sir. I am.
Okay. So, session zero of. Oh, that was just James. Okay. Uh, so, session zero of Starforged, which I am probably going to accidentally call Starsworn a bunch, because that was what we all called it when we were first talking about it on the Ironsworn forums.
That makes sense.
Um, anyway, so I kind of gave you guys the preamble on the forum. But basically, the assumption is that you're in this far flung off part of the universe, which is not your home. Humanity came there generations, like 4 or 5 generations ago, uh, and basically had to settle in a new spot of space. Now, from the gate work or the gate network, uh, restoration team standpoint, Celestial Connection,
Celestial
uh,
Connection Core.
yeah, core thing. Do you guys still want to go with that whole idea that you're in that this is a new part of space that has been very unexplored, or do we want to go with you guys are in a place and you're having to fix all this so it's less frontiersy and more getting people back in communication with one another?
I have thoughts, but I'm not going to say anything until other people say stuff. I have feelings about this one or the other.
Well, at the moment,
So
you're 1/4 of the opinions.
Margie looked over at me and said, "I'm good either way." Um, Margie's character concept fits in both.
Cool.
Um, I'm sorry, I was juggling three things. Can you repeat the alternatives, Mike?
Oh, I was just asking whether or not we wanted to go with the assumption that this is some sort of vastly unexplored area of space that humanity only moved into a handful of generations ago, and so it's more of like the frontier of space as opposed, or do we want to go with, you know, humanity did have this great long interconnected network and it has been down, and so people have been uh, disconnected from one another for an unknown amount of time. You know,
So,
we could decide on weeks, months, years, generations.
so the way that I put it also in the post made the decision about whether this is going to be about discovering new places or reconnecting people. So, are you looking for, basically the adventure of discovery or the adventure of social connection?
Which is,
Those are the big choices, really.
a part of me wants to say, why not both? And say, okay, well, we were, we were fairly fresh colony, out in unknown parts of space. Um, and having gotten out here and not quite gotten ourselves, barely to a subsistence level where we could live on our own without having to constantly get supplies from back home or anything like that. Like we're about at that point when, and just going, okay, now let's start to take a look around ourselves, and the gate collapsed. So you kind of get both. Where there's some exploration of just like we never really knew that much about this part of space in the first place, and then on top of that, everything went kind of sideways. Um, Plus the obvious sort of urgency of like let's try to get this all back together. Um, so we kind of get both a little bit, I guess.
Certainly could, but I feel like one is going to subsume
Sure.
the other.
Yeah, and I think that's probably fair. So that's more me thinking out loud more than anything, as much as anything else, honestly.
Yep.
My
Can,
personal.
you guys hang?
Go
Can
ahead.
you guys pause for just a moment
Sure.
so we can
Yeah.
see if
Yes.
can people hear Margie?
I did not hear Margie say anything.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong with her audio, but she can hear, but she cannot speak.
Very odd.
Is it possible it's muted, like maybe inside Discord or something goofy like that? That it defaulted back to being muted inside Discord or something, or on the mic?
It doesn't. I mean, she doesn't show as muted.
Is she on push to talk for some reason?
She's not on push to talk.
Yeah, we're just spitballing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of all the stuff that I do
No, I
wrong.
understand.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it's the problem she's been having where Discord seems to mute her headset and does not allow her headset to unmute.
Huh. That is very odd.
I am frustrating.
Yes. So we are instructed to go ahead, and she will listen along and chat stuff, or
Okay. We will.
Okay.
send me audibles as need be.
Very well. So,
I think you're. So to jump back to that, I think you're absolutely right. If I was going to voice an opinion one way or the other, uh, at least Mike and Bill are familiar with the fact that I have feelings about the Mass Effect series. So to a certain extent, when Bill said something about rebuilding the gates, I'm like, oh, it's a the Mass Effect sequel that I never got, and that makes me feel things.
I have a long time love of Mass Effect, so I am in the same boat.
Yeah, so for me, I kind of look at it and going, well, that'd be really cool because I like that idea, and it's always kind of been a thing that and at the same time, without it really, you certainly wouldn't want it to be a Mass Effect thing because that makes it less enjoyable for people who haven't done it. So, but the theme of it, like sort of rebuilding and recouping a loss and kind of getting that back, I like that idea a lot. I like and the way Bill expresses it. Um, as sort of being focused on social connections and stuff like that, I think is also really kind of cool and compelling too. So um, anyway, that's my 2 cents. Probably $1.50 more like, but
Dave, what's your opinion?
I think looking at the alternatives, and I like the idea of a longer term presence wherever we are, just because I think that lends some richness to what we're going to encounter. It also kind of gives us a reason to have more than like one gate that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my only concern about, hey, we just showed up out here in this particular sector and then got cut off.
yeah,
I'm concerned in that circumstance that it'll be a little bit more constricted than maybe what we'll enjoy. The idea that there had been a long time network and it's now been disconnected, it collapsed. And I could see arguments where it collapsed really recently, or it collapsed 20 years ago, and the economic and social disruption and wars and plagues and whatever that ensued. It's taken some number of decades to actually get to the point of a semi-organized effort to try to reopen these gates.
I like to comment on that last bit. I like the idea of it having been long enough that either some knowledge of like what other systems might be out there, what gate connects to what. I like the idea of an archivist or an archaeologist type of feel being valuable in the sense of reconstructing past knowledge, like being useful. I'm not saying it has to have been 1,000 years or 500 years or anything like that, but the idea that it's been,
Oh yeah, even if it's been like 4 generations,
yeah,
like some knowledge is going to be lost no matter what.
or
well, and one
you also get the
and even
Go ahead.
I was going to say, a thought that occurred to me was there may be folks that don't want the gates to be reopened for whatever reason.
Sure.
Superstitious political, we'll lose, I won't be the top dog in this area any longer.
Yeah.
Which creates a certain amount of conflict for us to overcome as well.
I also like the idea that when you have knowledge, like we know, like this was our closest trading partner, and we know a lot about these guys, and blah 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 blah, and it's been long enough that information can be wrong. Sometimes, most time, pretty close to right. But it's like, oh yeah, this has completely changed. It's nothing at all like what you remember. And I like that. Long enough to forget stuff, long enough for the seas to have shifted, and all kinds of reasons for them not to necessarily welcome us with open arms.
I'm going to say that takes us to the next question that I had, which is, are we doing this officially or unofficially?
Ooh.
And this could just be, for your own sector too. Like, as soon as you make it through that first gate, official is kind of a wonky term.
It's more about the perception than any real authority. Like authority
Sure.
is at bottom about perception anyway. But like if people think that we are representing something larger, and of course if they go through the gate, that we just reconnect it and find other people who acknowledge us,
Yeah.
then that's one thing versus if we're just passing by.
Yeah. Almost by definition, if we're not coming from the core worlds, we're not really. There's all kinds of arguments you can make for like, well, you're not actually, the official thing, whatever that happens to be.
Well, if depending on our concept of what both breadth and the nature of human society, out at our end of the galaxy is, the question of what's official and what's not. Well, there may be, the folks of this particular, pair of stars that are really thrilled about this whole idea, and folks over here who aren't and would never sanction an activity. And like, if I'm reading what you were just saying, Joyce, depending on how, or what the gates connect up to on the other end, their reaction may be very different as well. Is there still some sort of great unified hegemony? Did everybody else suffer the same sort of displacement that we did, and therefore some places are thrilled, other places are definitely not thrilled? Other places say, "Hey, look, Lebensraum." Other places say, heretics, be gone, burn them all.
Lots of good reasons to keep your guard up. Certainly.
Yep.
I cannot. I'm going to pause it for just a second here.
Did you unpause?
I have unpaused.
All right. So, question: official capacity or unofficial capacity?
Like the drama of do we get recognized or something, that's always assumed to be there no matter what. But this question affects mostly how we present ourselves, how our backstories are going to work, and a couple other things about our characters. So
yeah,
I sort of have this idea of it's an unofficial thing because there is no broad officialdom to bless it. But it's kind of a common cause. We're not necessarily the only ones involved in this effort.
Well,
but how that effort or how that whole idea is treated from system to government may be very different. So I would have to say unofficial.
but again, this is within your own guys' sector of space.
I like the idea that somebody's funding us, that we've got people that we're answerable to, and that we're not necessarily the only ship that's doing it.
right, that's basically what the question is. Like,
Yeah.
Who equips us, who supports us, but also who are we accountable to?
Yeah.
The answer might be nobody.
Because otherwise, we would have to be, I don't know, flying around with our own personal money bags person who's like dealing with this thing. To some extent, it's like,
oh no, that's where just scavenging whatever you can comes in.
I mean, and that kind of. Go ahead, Bill.
I will say that sort of style can be actually pretty exciting, depending on where you are. Like, if you're talking about Commander Shepard, like Commander Shepard's definitely official in the first game, very much not so in the second one.
Yeah,
true.
And like you can also look at inspirations like Doctor Who. Is like that dude just like cruises around and fixes stuff, and he's accountable to literally nobody.
Yeah,
it's a different, and I don't think either one's necessarily bad. If you think about like the How We Came Together is a very, very different kind of there's an overarching question that also has to happen if we're like sort of on our own recognizance. Like, why us? Like, how did we manage to come together?
That's literally the third question.
Yeah,
That is the next question.
yeah.
Margie opines if it's a question of above the law or below the law, she'd rather be above the law, but that doesn't necessarily mean official. It could mean tolerated.
Recognized.
It could mean,
Yeah.
the Adventurers Society, which is not an official, organ of Her Majesty's government, but is known and has a clubhouse in London and things like that.
Well, something a little bit less official than NASA, and even if you take NASA today, it's like, okay, yeah, there's people who control your purse strings who like you, and there's people who are technically, can technically use stuff to your purse strings who do not like you, and you still have to make them all happy. So yeah, this goes back to Dave's idea that there's maybe factions that aren't super happy about this happening, kind of thing.
But
And
really,
that can be
the
drawn.
question is, what sounds the most fun for you guys to play?
I like the idea of
What?
having some organization that we're at least nominally responsible to, or that we owe our assembly to. But that's my opinion. That's not everybody's.
So something like somebody gave you a spaceship and enough equipment to at least give this a shot.
Yeah.
But not necessarily governmental accountability.
Oh, and the idea that if you walk into a bar randomly and say you're doing this with such and such group, they're like, oh, you're those guys. Like people have maybe heard of you, as opposed to, what do you mean there's a group that's like trying to rebuild the gates? Never heard of that. At least in the home system. It'd certainly be a surprise someplace else, which is cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say none of this means anything.
Once you leave, yeah.
Yeah, given the choices we've already made, nothing is going to have any effect on the next place you go.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Agreed.
Joyce, sounds like you got something from you. Dave, opinion? You and Margie? I know Margie already voiced her, at least wanting to do this like with consent.
Yeah, I'm okay with, whatever organization we're part of is tolerated, sanctioned, but not necessarily a part of the governmental structure, at least where we are.
Okay. Bill, good with this?
Sure.
Okay. So, next question is, why you guys? Why was this crew chosen? And this may just be a case of you're one of several crews that were chosen. This could be because you guys have some special skills to bring to the whole thing, or something about that. Or it could just be you were the guys crazy enough to, start asking around to getting all the funding together. Or who knows, you might have an archaeologist type who's like, oh, I know more about all of the out of sector, realms than anyone else.
Yeah. My only comment about it is, like I already said, I kind of like the idea of there being more than one group. And if we end up looking a bit of a hodgepodge, could be because they're working on several, like we don't know exactly what's going to work in terms of a team, so we're trying a couple different things. We're throwing a lot of different configurations against the wall, kind of thing. I like the idea of there being maybe, but that would also imply that there's more than one gate to.
Very well could be, and it may be each gate leads someplace else.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I was assuming.
Yeah,
if we're a relatively large neighborhood. There may be multiple gates that maybe go to multiple places. The nature of what the local branch of the CCC is looks like might vary from place to place. Different ships or groups might be constituted differently. Margie's comment was, she's just muscle. So, I know for myself, yeah, I'm definitely going for the Holy Navigator thing. So, why they choose me? Because I'm willing to volunteer. I see this as, kind of, potentially kind of a, it's, I don't want to call it a club, but it's definitely sort of like the people that are part of it aren't necessarily the folks that were recruited, but who have wanted to be a part of it.
So basically, you're all volunteers into this endeavor.
That we've
And
got
so-
some interest in doing this, being a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, like no one was drafted. Everyone's got their motivations may vary, but motivations are present. They're
I mean, even in the case of like the muscle, it could be, hey, I needed to get off planet, and this ship said that it was going off to check out this Stargate 3 sectors away. That sounds like a great way to, get out of Dodge for a while.
Where do I sign up?
Not to put an idea in Margie's, on top of Margie's character, but
So it sounds like you're kind of a ragtag bunch of just people from different backgrounds who all came together with the want to go out into space and do some stuff.
Yeah, and you grab.
And
Yep.
and you're kind of like just SG3 to go for the Stargate equivalent.
Well, there's the multiple teams. And they're like, well, we need muscle on this team, and that one's muscle, so let's put them over there. And it just ended up where we fell into the correct slots to be on the same
All
team
right.
together.
That sounds good. That sounds workable. All right. So now for the best question. Why do you guys swear vows? Is this sort of like a cultural thing? Is this something that the group has, the organization as a whole is kind of put together as just sort of a trust building exercise between, you and whatever other cultures you meet?
I have a specific idea in mind, but I'm going to listen to see what other people say.
I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, we can hear Margie.
what did you change? What did you do?
I did 3 different updates.
Okay.
I've done that dance.
I mean, because there's the Corsair update, the GeForce update, the IQ update, and what?
One of which probably makes one of the other ones not work.
Yeah.
Dear.
Maybe this harkens back to an old tradition from before the gates were closed. And your organization.
I'm sorry. So
mythology.
I'm sorry. So is your question sort of either societally or for we in this group? Why is there this tradition of?
I think it's got to be
making these iron vows.
I think it's
opposed to.
I think it's got to be societally. Otherwise, who would give a shit that we're making the vow? Like, other people need to recognize that this is a significant thing. Otherwise, we're just somebody saying something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
there should be some recognition of it, and I think there should be some recognition that there are certain people that live that way and certain people that don't.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know. The why is still a thing, but I think there's some recognition, like when you do the thing, people are like, they may have never seen it before, or maybe they roll their eyes at it, and probably the reaction is different depending on which person you're talking about. But some people roll their eyes, some people recognize it, some people practically, drop to the floor and bang their head on the floor when it's happening, whatever. But everybody sort of recognizes that this is the thing.
Yeah. Some
That-
people might think it's old superstition and hokum.
Well, good. Then this brings me to what I was going to suggest,
Okay.
which is that people swear vows on fragments of FTL drive, the stuff that makes both jump drives and like the older, still functional fast and light drives possible. Like there's a crystal or some metal or something like that. The superstition, which may or may not be correct, is that if you say this thing, people who work closely with the drive systems will hear you, sort of like a prayer or a promise, and basically doing this is giving hope to people who are still out there in space and haven't made it home yet. You can also just go watch the song "Candle in the Water" from Pete's Dragon to get the idea. Like leave the light burning, so to speak.
I mean, I like the idea that the people who do this, that have this, are like, I'm thinking, when Bill said something, one of the things, that first thing I thought of was like Jyn Erso with a kyber crystal like around her neck. Like, they're not common, but they're like, the people who would know what it is. Kind of, but the idea of like there being a thing that you would have, whether it's on your neck
Like
or
a small token or remnant or totem.
Yeah, like people who live comfortably on the surface of a planet don't need this. It's the people who live in space or work in space or are still sort of in that sort of vagrant / traveling / not yet home sort of posture that depend on this.
it doesn't need to be a
kind of the opposite of the an evil eye. What's the yarn? The God's eye.
Oh yeah. Like
So instead of warning, it's either welcoming or it's projecting hope as opposed to.
Yeah, exactly.
some like I just like the idea of it being like a token that looks like the old gates or something like that. Whether that's a ring or some, well, like the Stargates that they use, the gates that they use in Mass Effect wouldn't be a ring thing, but they're a very distinctive shape, and having that as a on a ring or on a necklace or on a tattoo or anything like that. I suddenly just got an idea for a character appearance thing, incidentally.
Good
But
job, Joyce.
well, this that kind of a thing where that totem, almost, that symbol. I don't know. That seems like a really cool idea. It's like it,
Recognizable, at least on our side of things.
like pride. Well, and it's the idea that even 4 generations removed or whatever, people would still recognize it as like that's meant to be a gate, and you clearly think it's a big deal because, you know, the fact that you're wearing it or carrying it or, ritually scarred your, neck to have that symbol in your, on you or whatever.
Right. And to some extent, it also means spaces will stick together and to some degree. Like, if your worst enemy was out the airlock, would you go get him? Maybe, because nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves to go out that way.
Yeah.
So that kind of becomes this spacer code.
Yeah. I gotta find. Oh, like there we go. Oh, that's terrible. That's got a big photo bucket watermark over it.
Right.
Anyway,
So, are we good with the whole totem idea
I like
for
that.
this?
Sure.
Not that it's necessarily even a special thing as much as it is the symbol of the thing. Like it's the symbol, it's the thing, not.
Right.
To contrast it to Ironsworn, the whole point was swearing on iron as the whether it was a coin or the head of a hammer or a sword or whatever. This is more about like the symbology, the iconography.
Yeah, we swear on this thing that everybody's going to make it home somehow.
Yeah, like it.
All right. So, next question. Do we have Jedis? Is there some sort of mystic force in the world? Or psionics, or what have you? They give some people strange and unusual abilities. For your Mass Effect, this would be like the biotics. Is this something that exists, or is this merely like superstition?
I like the idea. I mean,
This really affects whether anybody picks up like the Seer or Firebrand or Kinetic.
Right.
I don't like closing the door on it. I mean, I don't know that I don't need it to be Jedi. I don't see the point necessarily in closing the door on it. I like the idea. I kind of like the idea of people like some of it being like due to exposure to gate radiation. You know, stuff like it was the first generations that went through the gates, you know, when we didn't really understand them and didn't properly shield our ships, and from that arose blah 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 blah, you know.
Oh, you mean the kids that were exposed to Element Zero?
The kids who were like back behind Bulkhead 12.
Yeah, you know, the first waves that went out, you know, that went out to colonize through these gates, and they were, you know, generational ships. Is like, yeah, we really should have shielded those better than we did, because when those kids had kids.
So for me, the question is it a known or is it a myth? In other words, even if we don't, you know, say, oh no, that's not part of our world, is it a known thing or is it more of a myth? So that if you do come across somebody who's, you know, fiery, you know, is it like, oh my God, there are unicorns, or is it like, oh hey, it's a fire guy?
I've heard about these guys, but I never thought I would meet one because I thought they were imaginary.
Yeah. Is it a unicorn or is it, you know, a zebra in downtown New York?
I like that analogy, Margie, because I didn't like it being like super common, like Jedi in the Old Republic common, but unicorns felt too crazy. But a zebra in downtown New York is enough of a like. I believe zebras. I'm shocked to see one in this context. Um, but I'm willing to, you know, concede that there's a weird chain of events that would lead to a zebra being here.
I'm cool with that. I don't feel the need to expect that sort of thing exists. But I mean, if someone actually wanted to go with that as part of their character, I would not say that they can't. So, or if we run across it, then
I think I'm kind of in there. I'm not planning on being a zebra.
Yeah.
But I'm okay that zebras are known to exist but are rare.
Yeah, I'm entirely prepared to be shocked at the sudden appearance of a zebra, but not unwilling to
But
believe.
you would actually understand what a zebra is.
Yeah.
So no Jedi till season 2. Got it.
Sure. I like it.
I mean, that seemed like it was the rule on The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Yeah. And then all the Jedi. That's kind of how Filoni tends to roll. No Jedi till season 2, and then all the Jedi.
All right. So let's see. Kind of already covered the communication data. All right. Here's a question. How and this is just a question out of the book. How common is or how good is our medicine? Are we talking like current Earth level, some futuristic like cybernetics, or we know this stuff exists, but we've not been able to replicate it? Zebra in New York.
Kind of like something in between there, which is like there is existing old tech that does it, but we could never replicate it. We don't know how it works. We just know that, like, if you put somebody in this pod, it tends to fix most things. We have no idea how it does it, or if the pod broke, how we would fix it. So it'd be sort of that zebra. So there is ancient technology that's out there that can heal, but it's not common and it's not understood.
Are we getting to a question about like where the gates came from, or is that just something that we haven't got to, that we haven't thought to ask, or we haven't asked it yet?
So there is eventually a question about precursors, because the
Gotcha.
game assumes that there are some precursors from before you guys.
Gotcha.
Well, that potentially gets into the origin of the gates in and of themselves.
Sure, yeah, which
we
is what
haven't
I was
touched on.
thinking of. And that
Yeah.
was kind of where I was going. I like the idea of there's kind of two answers there, maybe. In the same way that we don't really understand the gates, but except enough to kind of, possibly repair them. We don't fully understand them. I like the idea that there's med tech out there like that. There's like unicorn healing, but then there's also, that's not day to day. We're not necessarily carrying around a unicorn in our cargo bay, right? So what's everyday med tech like? And maybe that's
I from that perspective, I'm
better than us, but yeah.
I'm cool with it being better than us. Not, anybody can come back from anything, but I'm thinking even Star Trek the original series kind of scanners and
Quick.
so not somebody that's that's automatic. Hey, he seems to be having a problem. Let's grow a new arm for him.
Yeah, that may be okay. So the example that I'm thinking of is kind of like, it's definitely better than our tech, but not ununderstandable, like beyond understanding tech would be,
Yeah.
general evolution of our tech is this. They do something with this in The Expanse, where in the first book, a couple of the characters are exposed to an absolutely horrendous amount of radiation that should have killed them, and probably they'd be dead in like 12 hours. And they get back to the military grade ship that they're on, and the military med bay basically swaps their blood multiple times in the first 12 hours, does a bunch of cleaning on it, pumps them full of a bunch of chemo, and at the end of, I can't remember what it is, but there's a period of time where they're essentially on the radiation equivalent of a dialysis machine. They're like, okay, well, you can now function. You're going to have to hook yourself back up to the machine probably every month, and you're going to be taking radiation meds for the rest of your life every day, or every couple of days. But other than that, you're basically fine, except for all of these now new things that you have to do to keep from dying. So it's better than our tech, but you could like extrapolate forward from where we are now to, oh yeah, if we can keep you on machines regularly, you basically got cancer beat. Just, as long as you've got the support network in place, kind of thing. But then you've got, oh no, if we put you into this pod thing, we don't know really what it does. We found it. It looked like a medical thing, so we put somebody in it. Basically, if we put you in this, you're just not going to have cancer anymore. Also, you're going to basically have the body of a 25-year-old. We don't know why. Like, that's still out there to Margie's unicorn idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you, Doris. I'm thinking like, so the base tech level, allows for sort of the idea of quick healing, so it doesn't keep you from necessarily dying. It doesn't cure all disease, but it does mean, when you break an arm, there's ways of healing it faster.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
or when you have certain kinds of injuries, there's ways of making the downtime from that less.
Yeah.
But not necessarily,
You'll heal from a broken bone in 10 days, but you're going to have so many steroids on you, you will legitimately hallucinate. You know.
Oh, you mean, never mind, I'm not going to go there.
Well, and
Or-
probably, it talks about it or suggests it possible within the rules. Cybernetic augmentations.
Sure.
Cybernetic replacements for I did lose my arm. We don't know enough to grow a new one. Although I've heard that Joe Bob over the next system has a box that will regrow a new arm if you're willing to lie in it for a week. But we can actually put a robotic arm on you, and it's cool, and it will have these advantages, but it's still going to be a robot arm hanging off of your shoulder.
The box regrows the arm. And also, when you wake back up, you can speak an additional language, and you don't know why you can speak that language, and nobody else understands it. Weird.
Yeah. All of those miracle boxes need to have some sort of
warning,
additional effect.
Yeah, it's
from trivial to dire.
Anytime you come back from the dead or near death, it's you're not the same.
Yeah,
there are troublesome side effects.
I'm all right, but not quite. Anyway.
I don't talk about what happened in the box. It's not Tahiti. Maybe it's Tahiti. Maybe it's
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was one of the parts about Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that didn't drive me crazy. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
They're not dead, but the process of not being dead is maybe pretty horrific.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
or you saw God. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh hey.
So it sounds like we may have answered some of this already. But so for precursors, it sounds like we're on the path of, we know they exist, we found their stuff, we just have no idea who they were or anything about them.
We can infer some things. There are many theories and dozens, if not dozens of thousands of papers on it, but
no one's found the Rosetta Stone. No one's found the Pioneer plaque. Everything is inference and speculation, and
we wouldn't be able to really use much of it any at all if it weren't for the fact that they're all the things that still work are essentially expert systems that run themselves.
I didn't hear what you were saying, Margie. Are you far enough away? Are you too far away?
Did we lose Margie again?
Did the Bluetooth attenuate?
Maybe yes.
Troublesome.
Those darn kids.
Oh.
We may understand toaster, the precursor of toaster, but that's we're not rewiring
the precursor gate for fear that we'll swallow the entire solar system.
Well, Mike, in season 2, we find a Jedi, and the Jedi is a precursor person who's been in a box, and he comes back as like, you'd been using it as a toaster.
Yeah, because we need Javik.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that was caused by the screensaver coming on.
Ah.
Oh, interesting. I was going to say, I like, the Jedi comes back and said, wait, you were using the gates for transportation?
Of living things?
You didn't think of what else might be coming out of them?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reason they shut down an emergency intruder detection.
Yeah, those things only shut down if they're being accessed from
the bad place,
null space or something.
All right.
A non-Euclidean creature. Oh dear.
So speaking
of
at
least you haven't opened them up that again. Yeah. Right?
Go
ahead.
Are there horrors out in space? Of which, you know, people.
Unknowns.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a reason that the gate.
Roll on the random encounter table whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
I think
Or
there.
insanity
I
inducing.
think there has to be a reason that the gate's shut down.
All right.
Whether they were being misused because something decided these things are annoying and disturbing my sleep, so I'm going to flip the breaker that mortal minds cannot comprehend, or whatever. But I feel like there's got to be a reason that the gate's shut down.
I like it. It's like humanity starts using these gates, and it's like those people that walk past the house at night talking loudly, and there's more and more of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the police to shut off the end of the street.
Yeah.
As
Wait, now
opposed
that
to there's always some kind of negative side effect, like, hey, this is a great typewriter until you click on this key and it explodes.
There's a thing in the Expanse that they do when because there's a gate network in that one too eventually, where it's not often. It's not often enough to make them untenable, especially given the proclivity of humankind to want to get out and colonize and whatever. But about one every 400, 500 gate uses, the ship just doesn't come out the other side. Nobody knows why. They just don't come out.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, stuff like that. I mean, we're not to the point yet where the gates are maybe being used.
Which is telling you why they actually really don't understand how the gates actually work. And
Yeah.
therefore they have no clue as to why something would go wrong.
It's not one of the questions, but what's the survival rate on the people who reactivate the gates, and what's the
I think we're gonna find out in this game.
To more directly answer the question, my response would be, I don't need to dictate that there are Lovecraftian horrors in the void, but there's certainly room for any sort of number of things that not only aren't understood but can't be understood and are insanity-inducing or represent an existential threat to our dimension. That's a broad enough category that I'm willing to have that be the case without saying there are horrors.
Well, and we've got.
Oh no, I'm gonna tell you right now, the default options in the books, 2 of them are essentially space undead. So,
Love it. I mean, here's the thing that and I just thought of something else when Mike said space undead. Like, we're establishing like precursor tech that we don't fully understand. We know how to use ish, in the same way that my son theoretically knows how to work a circular saw. I don't know that he should use it. He could comprehend it and he could figure out what should be done with it, but and I think he probably has the sense not to. But we've established that. We've established that also they can do things that we probably think they shouldn't be able to do, like just make a person who died, 2 days ago not be dead, or grow a limb back or whatever. And that if it weren't for the fact that they had sort of expert systems keeping them sort of automated and going, there's a lot of stuff here that we wouldn't really be able to access. That means that you've got an expert system that's running based on logic from a species that we don't understand, which means that some of their logic is going to be the kind of logic that goes, because X equals A and A equals B, therefore X equals, I'm going to annihilate everything in this solar system because you just sneezed at the wrong time. So the unknown horror might just be a bit of precursor tech that wildly misunderstands the current situation and does something horrible because it can, and it thinks it's supposed to.
Sure.
You were using that as a toaster?
Yeah, and the toaster suddenly decides that because it's run 14 pieces of toast in the last 3 days, that's actually the signal to trigger nuclear meltdown of the sun, like nuclear death in the sun. We need to stop nuclear fission in this system because there's too much toast or whatever. I don't know.
Or hey, yeah, you could use a laser at really, really low power it to toast bread. But when you actually twist that knob up to the next notch, it does a lot more than toasting bread.
Yeah. And like unforeseen consequences of different tech, and that Dave and I always like to make jokes about the drug miscibility tables in D&D, like just unforeseen interaction, unforeseen interactions. Has anyone ever read the X Heroes, any of the X Heroes books?
I know of it.
I don't want to do spoilers, but the odds of you guys actually reading this is low. The voice actors are really quite good. I say voice actors because they use a couple of them, but the basic idea is there are superheroes that showed up, and not particularly long after there were superheroes, like call it 20 years or so, there are zombies, and it's a zombie apocalypse, post-apocalypse. There's little nodules of civilization, and largely due to the superheroes keeping things under control within a limited area, kind of a deal. And you find out fairly early on that the reason that there are zombies is because they're superheroes. Because one dude who could heal people, his wife died, and he threw everything he had on bringing her back and basically created Patient Zero.
Horrible.
Yeah. And the idea of completely unforeseen consequences from what is up till that point in time, what you think of as completely understood tech. So, and that's what Mike's thing reminded me of. The idea of there being space zombies. Well, yeah, we've got pods. We just said that can bring people back. That could malfunction. Now they have tech that never lets them die. I think there was a Doctor Who episode about that actually. Now that I mention it. Anyway.
Basically, Stargate system lords.
Anyway.
I will say, I do have a hard stop at 10 because I have stuff I need to do in the morning.
Okay.
However, we've gotten through all the questions. We kind of have our baseline setting set up. So now, we're on to characters. And we can start this one of two ways. We can either start with the ship, or we can start with our individual characters. Whichever one you guys want to do.
Sounds like a couple people have characters. I kind of want to hear about the ship a little bit because I don't know exactly what we need to do. Like what?
Wow.
But that's...
Basically, it's helping define, So we know that you guys got the ship as part of
the deal.
This organization.
CCC?
Yep. Now the question is this like, So I'm just going to give you guys like some of the descriptions they have for envisioning your starship. Basically the questions are, what does it look like? What makes it interesting or uniquely yours? Does it have any peculiar quirks? And I'm just going to read some of these off because they are certainly interesting. Exterior is marred by rust and grime. Faint phantom music sometimes echoes through the ship. Old bloodstains in the airlock reappear even when painted over. Patched hull covers a recent catastrophic breach. Someone marked the hull with graffiti during a recent layover. Things seem to go missing for no logical reason. Thrusters rotate for takeoff and landing. Bet you can guess where those last two are referencing.
I got the last one. I'm not sure about the second to last one, but that doesn't mean anything.
It was just the last one, really.
Yeah.
Because both the Mandalorian ship and
oh yeah, for sure.
Firefly both did those.
Mm-hmm.
And those are kind of like the staples of the inspirations for this particular set. So, what do we think of our ship? Is it something new and pristine, just rolled off of the factory floor?
Oh no.
Or does it have a few miles on it?
I would say it has a few miles on it, but I also would say that it's. Can you hear me?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, my headphones making noises to me. I would also say that it's has some features that make it ideal for being out in space longer than an average ship.
One of the things Bill had recommended is possibly it being a very large ship. Like even like what was it? A hollowed out asteroid with thrusters on it, essentially.
Yep.
Oh, what's the book that's?
It reminds me of something, I can't think what, but would we? And Mike can.
It was one of the ones you read to us. With the half of the planet, the part of the planet where people that actually came from a crash and lived there for a long time, and
Yeah, that was the David Weber stuff I was talking about
thank you.
earlier. The moon-sized planets or
The-
moon-sized battle stations,
The
which not proposing.
I guess the question there is if we do the really big ship, do we have? Is there more people on the ship than just us? And if so, is that a thing we need to represent by somebody like essentially picking that up as an asset or something like that? Or is
Yeah.
it largely automated? It should be. I mean, I've always liked the idea of ships being bigger than they're frequently portrayed. Like space is big. There's not a lot of reason to make the thing small, especially if we're not worried about conservation of mass and the fact that the fuel weighs more. The fuel to get anywhere is going to weigh more than the ship can carry. If we don't have to worry about that, then we can make the ships kind of big.
Oh yeah, other
I
than
don't like the idea
resources.
that it's like maybe it's like a repurposed generation ship, right? So it's like huge, but there's only a small amount of people on it.
Yeah. So you.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
Room for 40 families.
Yeah,
Only
maybe
us.
it's like it's the Mall of America, and we're in the Sunglass Hut. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, which it has its own interesting little aspects to it that can be played with in terms of, is the rest of the ship actually, sealed off, shut down? Do you kind of do people when they're, angry or wanting to be alone, kind of wander off into other portions of the ship?
So
do you hear strange music echoing through the hallways to pick up another one of those items?
to get,
Yeah.
you talk about like the it being like a ship that was intended for something else. If it's been like 4 generations, right? We're going to start to redo these gates. Well, the ships that use the gates, it's been 4 generations. Nobody's been using them. They don't all work anymore. So they're kind of like, okay, well, you obviously need to have a gate capable ship to get to and then activate and then go through these gates and continue on your merry way. The shopping selection for those kinds of ships is finite. So you kind of get what you get and don't throw a fit. Well, you're going to get a.
I love the idea of like, oh, we have a solarium.
We hodgepodge together 3 ships for you.
Good luck.
None of them had all the working parts.
Or we pulled this out of the museum.
What were you saying? Oh, yeah, what were you saying, Bill?
I'm going to suggest that maybe you cannot build ships with an FTL drive that are small.
Oh,
Like maybe.
Sure.
Ballast or the
So there's. So I mean, we were talking about generation ships, and generation ships are usually, not FTL or they're long ships, which could have been some of how people originally got to this area. If we got the gates to work, we could also though assume that there's something that has to be on a ship that can trigger or open or activate the gate. That's not just like a push the button and have the gate open up. It's a mechanical energy complement to it. So there are a limited number of ships that were ever built that had that. And if we're 4 or 5 generations down the line, like Joyce was saying, there may not be a lot of those still around, or the equipment may have been yanked out and replaced with other stuff in most of them.
Yeah.
We made our own dialer. It works 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Roll from the random encounter table for the remaining 10%.
Like for EVE Online, you got Titans, which are big enough that they cannot use the traditional jump gate system, but they can open space bridges themselves. And
Yeah.
you may have had ships that are not generation ships per se that can move faster than light. Faster than light is still relatively slow, compared to the distance that we had to travel, but they're very inconvenient if what you're trying to do is build an interstellar empire.
Right.
Because if your choice is this kilometer-long asteroid or 1,000 tons of free trader, a lot of starting people will take the 1,000 tons of free trader and be like, yeah, it's drum drives are perfect. This is the tech that we need. But if all your option is a Titan or nothing, then yeah.
You take the Titan. You take the.
The analog I suddenly thought of was like in B5, where most ships just use the jump gates between different places. It's a select number of ships that actually have their own jump drive that can open their own jump gates to get someplace.
And they all look like Babylon 4.
Yeah.
Like they're
And
Wow.
and yeah, and 90% of that ship is taken up with the equipment to do that.
Yeah. Where did?
So is that what we're feeling? Huge ships. 90% of them is the actual material needed for the gate.
I don't know that we need to fill 90% of the ship with
Yeah.
stuff. I would like to have room to expand. But I would like to say that there's probably a technical reason why it has to be like this.
Yeah. I like the idea of it like needing some sort of generator, some sort of trigger system, like Dave was saying. So there's a pretty significant draw that just generally is harder to do on smaller ships. That kind
I
of
like
thing.
that, but I also sort of like the idea that it's really old. That again, that no one has made these ships because, of course, the gates are all down.
Yeah, I think that too.
And so no one's building new versions of this ship because why would you? It's ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to react. You know what it reminds me of? So I don't know if you've ever been in the Oakland Bay. Dave will tell me the name of it, but there's this whole area that's like mothballed Navy ships.
Mothballed Navy ships. Yeah.
Where the holes are there, they're floating, but they're essentially fully decommissioned, right? But they haven't torn them apart, in case they ever need to quickly, build
Throw a
a
bunch
whole
of
bunch
hulls
of
together.
battleships.
Yeah. The assumption in the game, I think, is that the ships are like atmosphere capable. So, I mean, do we have to worry about that, or do
Does that mean we need to take? Do we need to take the smaller ships to act as shuttles and so forth?
That was literally the third paragraph in the
exactly.
Require someone to choose the support vehicle asset.
And
that is a choice for you guys to make.
I was already ready to do that anyway, so.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So
I guess I was taking the route. The question I meant to ask was like, well, if we're supposed to assume that it's atmosphere capable, and we're clearly picking a ship that isn't, can we get a shuttle? Like at least one shuttle that's like built in, that's assumed to be there, because otherwise we can never land.
That is the support vehicle assets.
Gotcha. I meant like just never mind. Carry on. Carry on.
So, what do you guys want to name the ship? Since it is this big behemoth. And is this a name you guys picked out, or is this the old name from pre-gate going down, and you're just keeping the same name?
I want it to have two. I wanted to have the old name and and then they rechristened it, but everybody basically remembers it as like some other thing.
I think it would be hysterical to drive it back to, you know, pre, you know, a name from the previous galaxy. You know, it's Apollo, you know, or something like that.
Or the Andromeda, or the
Yeah.
Yeah, something very kind of prosaic. So the you know Andromeda Express, or the something of that sort. And yeah, it's been given a different name, but everybody who's actually involved in the ship thinks of it by its own name, and they call it the Andy.
So okay, so
I don't know.
no, I like that. This won't be Dave's favorite part of my comparison, but I want to say it was like the third season of Babylon, or not Babylon 5, the third season of Battlestar Galactica, when they were like they sort of found a shitty planet to colonize.
Colonize.
They decided to
Uh-huh.
stay there, and the Pegasus is just sort of sitting up in orbit, and Galactica is just sort of sitting up in orbit, and they have a skeleton crew. Nobody really pays any attention to them because they don't really do anything for the people on the planet. Um, you know, the commander of one of them's really run down. The other, they both kind of gone to seed, that kind of thing. I like. So this is just what if riff off of this, like it was a gate hopping ship, like it was one of the gate hopping ships. Then the gates collapse. What the hell do you do with that? I mean, Margie mentioned a museum, but or like the mothballed ships, and maybe yeah we got some of them, but this is big ass ship that can probably generate its own gravity like through a rotational drum kind of a thing. So yeah, we just made it a space station that rotates around the planet. Well, that's great, except we don't have gates, so why the hell would you go into space? So for 4 generations, this thing's had a skeleton crew of just like people that you can't really throw out of like the Navy, but you don't want to give them anything responsible to do, so you put them in charge of, or you put them in as like crew members on this space station that nobody. And that's what it's been. It's been this joke. So it had a cool name, and it was like this star spanning thing, and it was turned into a station, and it became, you know,
Station Q3.
yeah,
Are
Station
you
Q.
saying are you saying it's like the paddleboat casino in South Dakota?
And it became this like laughable
In
thing
Sioux
that
Falls?
to call yourself the captain of the paddleboat casino is ridiculous, because it does. I mean, it's barely a ship, let alone anything that you would be, And now it's like, well, shit, we need one more to get out there into the, and do the gates. Like, well, let's recommission the station, and we'll rechristen it. Nobody will remember. Everybody totally remembers. I don't know. So like it's got like layers of names, you know. I don't know. That's one brainstorm. I'll shut up
Yep.
now. We have 15
I
minutes.
will
I'll shut
say.
up.
Yep, I have. And if nobody can think of anything, I have 3 tables of random names.
I like it. I mean, we can certainly.
Yeah, if somebody tells me to roll, I will roll.
What if we call it Earth One?
That's fine.
And then it was renamed something, when it was rechristened. I mean, it was originally Earth One, and then when it became, the pseudo space station, it had some cheesy name, and then when they decided to try and fly it again, it got a third name.
Well, to go to your idea,
And then,
Margie, like the original name is something really glorious, like the the spear of Atlas or something like that. That something really like da 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 da. This not Atlas. Who would be like the god of war, but not Mars? It's a Greek one.
Aries.
Yeah,
The Spear of Hector.
Or Aries.
What'd you say, Dave? Ares too. Yeah.
I said the Spear of Hector. I was thinking, Iliad, Trojan Wars.
I like
Spear of Ajax. The Spear of.
well, I like Ares too, but like the spear of Ares, and then it became something like.
Aries place.
All right. Then it became something like Mike Roll.
The Condor.
Too small.
The Majestic Condor.
A second. The
The
Scarlet
Divine
Queen.
Condor.
What was that?
The Scarlet Queen.
Like we just call it Queen Station or something, because basically people would just call it a station. We just got to be able to throw station on the end of it. Margie, you're miking up a little bit, which is ironic
Sorry.
considering how much you've had to struggle with that. Yeah, like something like Queen Station, and then people just started calling it the Stationary Queen. As in, sitting on a couch not doing anything. And then, then it gets rechristened to something. We can probably wait on that.
Finder. CCC V14728.
Now, if you want space station names, that's a different table.
Oh, is that a different table? Give us a space station name for the middle one.
Nope.
Nope. Just nope.
Spacer's Rest. Osiris Operating Base.
Oob. Osiris Operating Base.
Ooh,
Listening Post
Oob.
number 28.
I like it.
Monopellar Station.
Yeah, something like that. Something just so uninspiring.
Forward Operating Base Z14. Way Station Delta Delta Bravo.
DDB. Yeah, yeah.
Resupply Station K47.
Yes. Something like just absolutely, and we'll have to figure out a nickname for it. But it was for a while. Like during this whole the interregnum or whatever. It's been just nobody like amongst the governing bodies of the wherever we're from. It's almost verboten to refer to it by its original name. Like you refer to it by resupply state, and anybody that tries to refer to it as the Sphere of Ares, like, gets the look, and when it's rechristened. I like the idea of like the home, like you guys said, like Gate Finder or like Home Finder or Homestuck. No. I don't know. I'm at a loss. Is this a thing we really shouldn't go past, or should we?
It's just to give the ship a name, so that you guys are the crew of something.
Maybe we should start the first actual session with like the official christening name or something like that.
Even if it is like, you're the crew of the Santa Fe.
Yeah.
I love the. Actually, I like the Oob as the middle name.
Yeah. Osiris.
Operating Base or whatever.
Yeah. Orbital Operating Base.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take off the Osiris thing, but just Orbital Operating Base 6. or 5, Oob 5, Oob 7, something like that. Just and that's what they did.
Yep.
Oob 7.
Yep. So you used to be Oob 7. Now you're Wayfinder 7.
Oh, I like it.
I like it.
Yep, I like it. Wayfinder, that's a good. Thank you, Mike. Dave, you were thinking about the Holy Navigator thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the next
That's-
question is characters. If we can get through it in 10 minutes.
I want to hear people's
At
high
least on a
concepts. Yeah.
If we can just go through the high concepts. And we'll start with Dave because he already got brought up.
Blaze Akawa, devotant plus navigator, member of the Church of the Pure Coordinates, who believe that God wants us to find the celestial coordinates to Eden, which will be the origin of life, which is where we will find God. And so, trapped out here with all the gates down, obviously we can't do that.
Of course, that'd be very difficult.
So,
Reopen gates. Maybe you'll find it along the way.
Yep.
absolutely.
Find the holy spaces in space. And
All right. Did you have assets picked out already?
I did not. I got to paths, and that's as far as I took
well,
it.
I mean, paths are technically assets. They're a type
Tabs
of asset.
are assets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's two of his. Is you get 3? Is it like an Ironforge where you get 3?
Yep, you get 3. You pick 2, and then you pick a third one basically to round out your character at the end.
Okay. I will ponder that.
So his
I
2
think
right off there are Devotant and Navigator. So there's 2 out of the 3.
So they ask, or they recommend nobody pick the same assets as other people, just so that you have uniqueness. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Gotcha.
And I
Margie.
mean, the devotant is probably the key one there that I kind of want to play with. So if someone else is just dying to be a navigator, changing it to explorer or something like that would work for my concept. So
Gotcha.
Margie, which
carry on.
I've gotten beyond the concept that the character is, the sort of more hands-on violence dealer.
You're the muscle of the group.
I'm the muscle. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the basic concept and sort of where that joins other things. I haven't quite identified as of yet. I was kind of waiting to see how everybody else was before I.
Gotcha.
Makes sense. Joyce, what you got?
Nope. I need to hear Bill's. I'm still looking.
That's kind of cheating.
Well, no, it's not. I have a couple of ideas. I'm not sure. And I know David or Bill at least knew that he wanted to do the shuttle thing, which means he's got more of an idea than I do.
So I'd been thinking about ship's engineer. I'd have the shuttlecraft. I'd have gearhead as one of the assets. I don't know about the third asset. I am going to look for something that creates a neat counterpoint or gives me some surprising options. But yeah.
All right. So we got an engineer, a navigator, the heavy, and Joyce.
I like the idea of okay. All right. I got to find the bits that I liked so I can kind of talk about it real quick. I like the idea of I think it was Bill, were you just saying something about scavenger?
Gearhead.
Gearhead. Okay, so so we've talked about Mass Effect and stuff like that. One of my other great loves when I was in college for gaming stuff was Space Hulk. This isn't really a muscle thing though. but I love the idea of like one of the things I talked about in here was somebody who was like banner sworn and like an exosuit, but not like in a combat-y way, but like the person that you send out for like, crawling around the outside of the ship, crawling around the outside of the gate, crawling around the outside of some like hulk that you find, um, kind of deal. And I was looking at
Spacewalker.
what's that?
Spacewalker.
Space, yeah, but like banner sworn, plus maybe not the exosuit thing. I need to look at that again. I can't remember what it was about that piqued my interest, and I'm not going to worry about it just at this moment. But maybe scavenger. I will also say in the back of my head, I'm thinking about I like the idea of having sort of a pairing, and I was thinking at one point about sidekick and doing some sort of bonded couple or a sibling thing. But I also like the idea of taking haunted and then taking it literally. Like,
I mean,
Huh.
that is one of the options for that one.
what's
You're
that?
literally haunted by somebody.
Yeah, yeah. And I think partly what ticked me off on it, like in Ironsworn, there's an option that's very similar to haunted, sort of. Um, and my
Yeah.
my 7-year-old took it, and it's like the sister that died because she personally was too lazy to go and do her chores, and her sister went instead, kind of a thing. My 7-year-old came up with that. Worrisome. Anyway, but yeah, I kind of like the idea of somebody who's like legit, like Gaius Baltar hallucinating somebody. Um, uh, just so that's kind of in the back of my head, and I somebody who's sworn to this whole endeavor and for reasons that tie back to haunted, and whether or not I then go to exosuit or scavenger. But yeah, something along those lines where I'm not, the role on the ship is more once we get there. Although I think nobody's really particularly constrained from being a pilot as such. I'm just, I got to back at the system and things, but most people can try stuff.
Are you thinking like Voidborn, or are you thinking like?
No, not somebody who's necessarily born to space, but somebody who's just like their particular talents lie towards getting the lights back on, and also being able to go, you know, take a bunch of scavenge stuff and make stuff out. The scavenger thing, the initial thing is like when you gather information or resupply. So this is a good way of like figuring out what's going on in a situation because you can scavenge a wreck, a ruin, or an abandoned site to either resupply or gather information, and you get
Right.
bonuses, and you can get bonuses to both of those types of roles because you're just good at going through this old crap and either finding something useful materially or finding something useful informationally speaking. Um, and there's another move in here that I am absolutely flipping in love with that I've always liked in these kinds of situations, which is you're facing danger by like frantically cobbling something together at the last second to kind of make.
MacGyvering?
Yeah, you're frantically slapping crap together, and you finally close the circuit by taking a crescent wrench and slapping it into the circuit. It's going to melt down, but it'll hold for the 5 seconds you need to do X, kind of thing. And that's one of the moves one of the ways you can expand that particular asset later that I really like a lot. So I like the scavenger thing. I like the banner sworn thing. I like the haunted thing. Um, I don't need all of those. I'm not sure if banner sworn's necessary specifically. The haunted thing might have certainly been what drove me out here to this, um, for whatever reason. So anyway, does that help? Does that get people?
Sounds like everybody has a concept.
I do. I have a better one
Alright.
now that I know what everybody else is kind of doing.
So, so, do we want to take this to the forums then and kind of like discuss it and hash it out? And then, if we finish everything up next week, we can get started.
I think so.
Ooh.
I like it.
Now, The other thing that we would be doing during this is, and they kind of are like, the group can do this, or the GM can do this. Either one. And that is setting up the starting sector. Which is why I had all these planets out. Because based on whether or not you guys are in like some of the nicer areas, you have more settlements in that area, as opposed to like the Expanse, which is the big empty part that is very unexplored. In which case, you guys get 2.
I
And with that one, you basically have to find everything.
what do you mean?
As opposed to like the Terminus, where it's like, oh yeah, you have many paths between these different settlements. And then there's an Expanse. It's like, there are 2 settlements. You know how to get from one to the other. Everything else you guys got to find.
I think we want. I have to look at it in the book probably and just get a better idea. It feels like you'd want more than that, just because we're sort of trying to get more of the network online, so we need more network to get online.
Well, no, this is the start.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
what you guys
Gotcha.
know at the very beginning.
Oh.
And then, you know, I mean, we could do it where it's like, yeah, you guys have basically been living with your 2 settlements in this sector for generations. Now it's time to get out. Or it could be like, oh yeah, there are like 3 habitable planets, and then there were a couple of space stations with some smaller settlements here and there that were here. And now that you were a kind of big group, you now have the resources together where you can finally be like, all right, we're going out.
Interesting.
So I think one way of, I mean, just from my point of view, one way to think about it is, are you approaching the gates because you feel like, oh, okay, so we've got this now, we can afford to work on the gates, you know, everything else is stable, or is it you're desperate because you have so little resources in your current situation that opening the gates is, you know, considered necessary to your survival in some way?
Or you
Heard you
can,
put it very well.
yeah, the writing is on the wall. Like we may not be dying right now, but if we let this go for the same number of generations that we've already let it go, we're dead. It's not maintainable. Um, yeah, I kind of like that. Like, maybe not that we're like on our last legs, but we can definitely see that from here. Yeah, that seems right.
All right. Well,
And we probably would want to do it either on the forums or
So,
do it as
Bill,
the first thing.
how does that sound to you? I haven't heard you lately.
who'd you ask that towards?
Bill, I think.
I'm pretty okay with this.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm filling in character details on Roll20. Like I'm pretty okay with like, as far as the starting systems go, not having too many to start with. I feel that from my own Ironsworn experience, a lot of stuff is just going to sort of just emerge dynamically from the dice. I'm actually kind of wary of doing too much pre-planning around that kind of thing. So
That is completely fair.
like if we just start with a small environment, like I don't think that's going to be the way it is for long. I think the nature of the game that we're proposing here is going to rapidly grow the set of communities we have access to. So like it's, you know, if we start out small, that's fine.
I think that's actually good.
That makes sense.
Good previous experience bringing over.
Yeah, I like it.
Yep, that is one of the big things. This game will just be like, hey, did you want entanglement? Would you like one anyway?
How about you?
Yeah.
Too, they're small.
It's
yeah.
like having a second GM who doesn't listen to you and just tells you, like, here's how it's going to be. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Yep. And this is not going to go smooth. So here's some suggestions on how you can make it not go smooth, but it definitely not going to go smooth.
And
Would
then
you like
the
it to
other,
not go smooth your way or not go smooth my way?
now the other thing is we would do the inciting incident, which is basically what gets you guys started. And I kind of have one in mind. The Doyce kind of inspired, or we could let you guys come up with your own. I'm good either way.
I don't mind you having a seed to start us off.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well then,
Mm-hmm.
I am just going to tell you exactly what it is, and that is, you guys have your ship. Things are great. You're ready to get out there and start going. Except you need the last part in order to get this thing gate traverable, which you're going to have to go scavenge. And whether or not you know exactly where that is or not is up to the roll. This might be something where you guys have to hunt it down yourself. Or it might be
Okay.
something where it's a known commodity, at which point it's just going to be the difficulty of getting it and opening up the gate.
I like it.
That works for me.
All right, cool. Well then,
I don't know what I said that caused that to be an idea, but I'm fine with it. So.
it was your scavenger background.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Gotcha. Cool.
But yeah. All right. Well, if that's the case, then how about we take these to the forums? Hopefully, get some characters wrapped up this week, and then we can start off next time with the roll.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Since we've been talking, and I don't want to go over time for you, but if the others can stay on for a minute. So I'm looking at brawler, weapons master, and then maybe healer for the third. Having taken care of myself a few times. Does that feel too limited to being like upfront in person, or do you think it'll still work within the setting?
I
Sounds
think
great.
that'll be fun.
Okay, cool. Then we'll do
Yeah.
that.
So I took Gearhead Trader and the support vehicle shuttle.
I was looking at taking sensor array module for my third.
Ooh, very
Awesome.
interesting. But I know Doyce has some thinking to do.
I'm peering because I'm looking at. Well, maybe I don't want Banish Swarm. Maybe that's not what I'm. Maybe that's not the thing I thought it was.
So should we be adding stuff to our character sheets?
Yes, you should have full control of that.
Okay.
If you guys don't, I would have just came in and filled it in next week before we started playing.
Okay.
Because so the assets from this are not in the character sheet. They're going to have to get manually added.
Yeah.
Which can be a bit daunting if you don't know how to do it. Because it gives you a bunch of options, but doesn't really explain what those options are.
Yeah.
But I have messed with this enough to know what they are, so I can also do that. So it's more of a question of whether or not you guys feel like messing with it or not.
I'll see how my husband feels. And see if he wants to mess for me.
Also, what was everybody thinking of for their primary stat? Because you get what is it? Just so I make sure I say the right array of stats, because I use different ones in my old
Iron
game.
Shadow Wit? Or is it health, spirit, supply? It's
it is.
heart, iron,
Edge.
shadows, wit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
edge, heart, iron, shadows, wit. The other ones are your statuses, which are going to go up and down.
Right.
Okay, so it is, you get one of them at +3, two of them at +2, and one of them at +1.
Okay.
You just
And Margie kind of sounds like the iron person.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry. You get 1 at +3.
One at
Two at-
+3, two at 2, and the rest are at 1.
Okay, so it'll be 2 at 1. Okay. I
3,
was trying to make the numbers
2,
out of.
3, 2, 2, 1, 1.
Or 1, 1, 2, 2, 3.
Yeah, that works. The pyramid.
Well, thank you, Mike, for pulling this together. It sounds
Yeah.
like fun.
Well, we will see how it runs next time, because I am very interested to see how this runs with the group. I've done it once before. It was a lot of fun during, but it was one of those things where people were like, yeah, we had fun, but we kind of want to go back to our other game we were playing. So I think all that was just like, we had like an extra week, whereas like we couldn't get everybody together, so it was just like me, Brandon, and Bowser playing together.
Ah,
All right. I took Wits of 3, Edge and Heart of 2, and then Iron and Shadow of 1.
I'm gonna have to go back to the book and decide how mine should distribute.
Yeah.
But
ditto.
I think you're right. Iron is probably my primary.
Yep. Physical strength, endurance, aggressiveness, and prowess when fighting in close quarters.
Yeah, for sure. Bill, what was your top one?
Definitely Wits.
Okay.
Expertise, knowledge, and observation.
What I wanted. Sorry.
I might lean toward heart. I'm not sure.
Heart's always nice.
But if Dave, if you were going to head that way, I can do something else. It's totally fine.
No, I'm scrolling through the launch year campaign.
What does Edge give you?
Edge is like Dex. I'm just
Quickness, agility, and prowess when fighting at a distance.
Okay.
so you probably wanted a 2 just for guns
Yep.
or whatever.
Okay.
Shadow is sneakiness, deceptiveness, and cunning. Anyway, another thing I wanted to bring up is you might notice there's a ship token.
Mm-hmm.
And you may notice below it there are 2 bars. Can you see the 2 bars?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see the numbers on the 2 bars?
They're both 5 of 5, yeah.
All right. So there is the health of the ship, which is on the asset card, it starts at 5. However, also that is an asset everybody shares in addition to the rest of your assets.
Mhm.
So if one of you is like, I'm going to spend 2 experience and pick up the second benefit of the starship, great. Everybody benefits from that.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading that. Cool.
Anyway, the other part of that is you have a shared resource called supply, which all of you have it on your character sheet. That is shared between all the characters. So if somebody spends supply, everybody spends supply. And if somebody
so
regains
Joyce
supply,
scavenges and finds a bunch of stuff, that's great.
And supplies
Yeah.
goes up. Yeah.
If
Yep.
I blow through a whole bunch of it, breaking things, then everyone goes down.
So
Yep.
I'm going to note that when it says when it says if one person spends supply, that's not something that's like connected mechanically on these sheets. Like if you change the supply stat on your character sheet, nothing else changes.
That's fine. Yeah.
So
Yep,
always
that
do
is
that
true.
always do that off the shared sheet. And I'm not even sure, because of that, I'm not even sure why supply is even a thing on the individual sheets. So there you go.
That is a great question. I'm gonna guess it's
Just
for
to
solo
confuse
players.
Yeah, probably for solo players.
Oh yeah, but yeah, there is the thing on the supply on the shared sheet if you open up Wayfinder 7.
I changed it to Wayfinder. It was Warfinder, which
Oh,
could still
I thought I
absolutely
changed
be.
it to Wayfinder.
Yeah, it could still absolutely be a thing, but probably not the direction we're going.
yep. Sorry, that
Warfinder.
was my typo.
That's fine.
or finder.
Tipio.
That might be too pernicious. Persi-
Pernicious?
I can't talk tonight. Forethought.
I can barely hear you.
Sorry. Thinking towards the future.
Prophetic?
No,
Prescient?
never mind. I'm
Perspicacious.
thinking
Prescient. Yeah, prescient.
prescient.
There
Thank
you
you.
go.
I was getting myself confused because of the one of the creatures in the creatures versus Clanks series I was looking at previously. Anyways,
All right, we should let Mike go.
Oh yeah, I
thank
should probably go
you.
at some point. I have just been having fun. Oh yeah, also,
Good.
there is a move that we're gonna use that's not in the book. Sorry.
Dun dun dun.
Should have popped up on your screen.
Oh,
Yes.
it's crappy homebrew stuff.
No, actually, this is from the Delve book, and it adds something very nice to the game that Margie had brought up, and that is
I'm a fan.
you have a track on your sheet called failures. Every time you roll a miss, you mark a tick on it. If it was a progress move, you mark 2 ticks. And once you get up to 6 or more boxes filled, and you can choose whenever you want to roll this based on the trigger, because you have to spend time reflecting on your hardships and missteps. You get to roll, and depending on what you roll, you get anywhere between 1 and 3 experience, and you may also get other bonuses if you get a strong hit.
I also like how you can completely botch this roll.
You can entirely botch this roll. You still get experience though. You just have learned the wrong thing from all your failures.
Or you learn that your belly button's an innie instead of an outie. You know.
Yeah. It doesn't accumulate XP for you as fast as failure rolls do in like Mask or something like that, but it definitely changes the economy a little bit. When I started doing this in Ironsworn, it definitely made the failures not feel quite so bad.
Well, the other
really?
the other benefit for you is, did you take an asset that you didn't really like? Super. Get rid of it and trade it for something else.
Yeah, which is cool. I don't know what to do with the second one, but I think I'm definitely going with Scavenger and the Haunted thing, and then I need to figure out what would be the coolest thing for that final one.
Well, there are many options.
And Dave, tell me what I think some of this is going to be informed by whatever my primary stat ends up being. So Dave, tell me if you end up going.
I went with heart for my primary.
All right. Well, then I will not do heart, and I will go and look at something else. All right. So we had somebody who did wits, we had somebody do iron, we had somebody do heart. That leaves me with shadow and edge, and I will figure it out from there.
Shadow.
Yeah, be the sneaky person.
Yeah, I'll have to figure that out. We don't have one, certainly.
You might just pick up scoundrel.
Could be. I'll think about that, because it's whatever I do, it's going to definitely. It's going to definitely say something about the background, so I want to, and I, not to be too gamey about it, but if I'm going to have a shadow, I might as well have something that actually points at shadow in some way, shape, or form for a final path thing or asset or whatever. So figure that out. Whatever is good for that.
Yep.
So.
Could be many things.
Mm-hmm.
Could even have a car.
When you make a move to call upon their, I need to look at the moves too, because I think the moves don't really necessarily map out to. I want to take a look at the move sheets and just see what's new, what's different, that kind of thing.
Yep, I have all of them in here for handouts,
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you.
including one where they called it suffer moves. I figure I'm going to call it exactly what everybody's going to say whenever they have to roll one of them.
Oh crap moves. Yeah.
Oh crap.
Yep. Face death, face desolation. Yeah.
Overcome destruction is the worst.
There are a lot of moves. I will, certainly there are a lot of moves, but I really feel like it's
They're compartmentalized.
Yeah, exactly. If you're doing adventure-y stuff, you really only care about the adventure moves. Like you're not looking
Yeah.
at, they really do kind of.
The thing I
There's
have
some overlap,
basically the thing I have always said is, depending on what sort of scene you're in, if you're in like combat, you're going to focus on the combat moves. If you're in an exploring scene, you're going to focus on the exploration moves. If you're going from one place to another, you're focusing on the no, those are the exploration moves. If you're doing your quest stuff, then you're focused on the quest moves. The adventure moves are just sort of generally applicable all the time.
Yeah.
But everything else is fairly compartmentalized, and you probably are not going to focus or deal with them very often, unless you have to. And there may be some people who are just like, you know what? I am not the person to roll exploration. I'm not going to do it. That sounds like a Dave or a Bill job.
Yep.
Yep. That sounds good.
I'll do an adventure move, but only if it means lifting rocks and.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you do have to secure an advantage with strength, endurance, or aggression.
Yep. I think they have. It seems like they've divorced the moves more from specific stats, and a
For
little
the
bit
adventure
more.
moves, yes. For the other moves, a little bit.
When I look at like the old version of Haunted, it wasn't called Haunted. It took me a while to find. I look at the move as it was from Ironsworn. It's like very specifically, it's connected to these two moves, and when they're rolled this specific way. And now it's like when you seek to do generally any move that does X, so they kind of make it a little bit more flexible. It feels like so.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, and even like undertaking an expedition where you're like going out into the unknown. You can now roll 3 different stats for that, as opposed to before where it was just wits.
Gotcha.
Because you can just be like, no, this is a bad neighborhood. We're just gonna hightail it through here.
Gotcha.
Great, roll me edge.
Yeah. What's the other one? So if it's wits, edge, and what's the third one?
Shadow
Oh,
for
so
keeping under the radar.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I need to look. The deeds are things that stuff has to happen, and the deed assets are things that have to happen in the game before you can really qualify for them, right?
Correct, because
Yeah.
they have prerequisites like once you have filled 4 boxes of your bonds legacy track,
Once
you've
you've
filled 5 boxes of your quest legacy track.
almost died.
Well, once you face death,
Yeah.
what that means entirely up to you.
I have much digging to do. All right.
All right, guys, have a fun week. Hope to hear from everybody.
Yep.
Tell James I hope to not see him again, but in a nice way.
Well, we'll definitely let folks know when we get word.
Oh yeah,
it'll be this week. So.
Yeah, as soon as you guys hear, I will be very interested because it is going to be.
Well, and then it's sort of like a fire drill because it's sort of like as soon as we hear, then it's a matter of. As soon as we hear, then it's a matter of, rushing to get tickets, rushing to get a COVID test, rushing to do this and that, and getting them on a plane and keep them out of here.
Yep.
Doyce.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you've looked at this yet, but there is the expanded cargo hold. You can change supply into cargo, and then interchange them as needed.
Ooh. So it kind of gives you like a little
Yeah, essentially gives you 3 more spaces of supply.
Nice. Huh.
And for somebody who scavenges, you might just have a bunch of shit.
Yeah. If you can get lucky and get ahead a little bit. It's
Yep.
always nice when you can make that happen. Think about it. That's good. I wasn't scrolling off into that stuff necessarily, so that's good.
Yep.
All right.
Hell, and this is the one I wanted whenever I was going to do my solo game, but just the Overseer module, because who doesn't want an AI to talk to?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Lucy from Killjoys. I just was all over that. I like that idea a lot. Love that show.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Cool. I'm gonna stop recording.